ahead and start, you guys.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started as we figure this out. So we're Team 2. I want to start by asking you guys a question. What do you think is the most valuable brand in the world? Let's get some answers.
Apple.
Over here. Okay, it's not fun if you know the answers. What are some other thoughts? Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so as you guys know, Coca-Cola is the most valuable brand in the world. The second one is Apple. So think about these companies for a second. With Coca-Cola, you think about them, basically have one good product and they've been milking that for a century. And with Apple, people tend to think of their innovative process as, the creative genius of Steve Jobs. But it turns out that in both these cases, there's a very systematic approach to innovation that the companies use to achieve their goals. So we're going to talk about companies like these and several others in introducing the Innovation Master Plan, a process that you can use to ensure that your company achieves its goals and can ascend to new heights. So in terms of how this presentation is going to work, we're going to start with a brief overview of the 7-step process behind the Innovation Master Plan. Then we'll go through each of the 7 steps, and lastly we'll go through a case study on the master plan before we wrap things up. So what are the 7 steps? Well, here they are. To put it pretty simply, we want you to think about what your goal is, think about a way that you can achieve that goal, and then put that strategy into action. That sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised how many people fail to actually do that. So we like to think of innovation as a funnel. So you start with the big picture, and then narrow things down to the innovative idea. A lot of people, they like to start at the narrow end. They think they have this killer idea, and they're just going to put that into practice right away. But we think it's important to start with the broad vision. And how do you do that? You do that by starting with strategic thinking. You identify your strategy. And that means a couple things. First of all, you should identify a strategic goal, what you want to accomplish, whether that is to increase awareness about your brand, introduce certain products, gain market share in some industry. That's up to you. And then you think of a strategic hypothesis, how you're going to accomplish that goal. So coming back to the Coca-Cola example, Coca-Cola was founded in the Prohibition era as a non-alcoholic alternative to wine, and that turned out pretty well for them. But at the turn of the century, the company was struggling. Pepsi was entering their market, taking away their customers, and Coca-Cola needed to do something new. They needed to redefine their strategy. So their new CEO sat down, Neville Isdell, and he said, okay, what's our strategy, or what's our strategic goal? Our goal is to remain at the top of our industry, and we're going to do that, the hypothesis, by diversifying our products. You'll notice that he didn't say what specific products they were going to diversify into. He was just setting this broad vision for what they wanted to accomplish. And in doing so, they were going to add value. And that takes me to the second point in the Innovation Master Plan, which is having an innovation portfolio. You want to have an innovation portfolio, you want to have a lot of different ideas that you're considering. Not just one thing that you have this laser focus on. Because if you only have one thing and that one thing fails, then you're going to fail. You want to have multiple things, much like an investment portfolio. You want to balance risks, think about what different things you should consider, and you can do that by considering innovation metrics. So we'll run through some slides with metrics. We're not going to go into the details of those metrics right now, but you can review these later. The idea is that you should have some system to think about your different innovative ideas that you can use to accomplish your goal. And how do you fill out these metrics and go through these charts? You conduct research, which is the third part of the master plan, and probably the most important part. So with research, you need to acquire knowledge. So there's a couple of kinds of knowledge that we want to talk about. There's explicit knowledge, which is scientific facts, known processes, and there's tacit knowledge, things that are broad social trends that you want to be aware of. So a lot of internet companies do a good job synthesizing these two types of knowledge into some product. Just think about Amazon. Founded in the mid-90s by Jeff Bezos, and it proved to be really successful. They had explicit knowledge about the internet, how to design a website, which was revolutionary at the time. And they had tacit knowledge in the sense that they understood that people would want to shop online, they would want to have that convenience if it was available to them. And they made that work. Now they're taking over the retail industry. So how do you go about acquiring that knowledge? In order to do that, you have to go to your customers. You have to go to the consumers and understand what they want. More importantly, what they need, because sometimes they don't really know what they want. I'll give you a quick story about that with OXO kitchen appliances. Those appliances were initially developed for arthritic patients who needed easy-to-use kitchen appliances. Then they realized that everybody likes easy-to-use appliances, so they switched their focus and they understood that everyone would like these products. They took over that market. And once you understand what people want, you can move forward into modeling, which Doris is going to talk a little bit about.
So I'm going to talk about the third step of research, which is modeling. So need finding is basically understanding what the customers want. But modeling goes deeper and systematically analyze how they want it and how they make their decisions. So for example, people who are good at psychology, economics, stats, and econ will probably gather together to do some analytical thinking on why this happens. So instead of understanding what products are popular in the market, we're going to delve deeper and see why those products are popular. After doing modeling, we'll go on to the next step, which is ideation, which is a build-up. So after doing the modeling and the need finding, we're going to come up with ideas. So this is the stage where everyone, the researchers, the programmers, everyone just gather together to throw out ideas. It could be crazy ideas. It could be ideas that are not going to work. It could be ideas that are reasonable, not reasonable, products that are cheap or expensive. It could be anything. We just want a lot of ideas together. Which brings us to the final step of the research process, prototyping and testing. This is actually a really important step. We just read the case study on IDEO, and after reading it, you'll realize this company focuses a lot on prototyping. Let me tell you a quick story. So one time they're trying to develop like the telephone handle. So what they did was researchers gathered, they cut off foams, made dozens and dozens of models, and what they did was they cradled it between their shoulders and their head to see which one's the most comfortable. This is how much they care about prototyping, because they understand that prototyping is the connection between their company and the customers and the market. So prototyping is the final step to research. I know research is a really long process, but it builds a really good foundation for our fourth master plan step, which is ideation. So ideation, which is insight. Insight is sort of the eureka moment for the company. After you have all these prototypes in front of you, you can sort of use the innovation metrics and the innovation portfolio, which are the steps we talked about, to sort of analyze which prototype is the best for our company and which product will make us the most profit. After deciding on the final product, we can go on to the fifth step. We could go on to the fifth step, which is innovation development.
Okay, so during innovation development, advanced prototypes are designed, built, and tested on consumers. The best way to do this is to work with researchers because they have the deepest knowledge of ideas surrounding your product. Project management is an integral part to innovation. Project managers must be relentless, and they must be able to gather a consumer base so that decisions can be made about which features of your product to focus on. To properly prepare an innovation for market, there must be a meshing of market development and innovation development. Market development is the well-defined relationship between the consumer and the company. In recent years, Nike has done a great job of market development. I play football here, and so I'm in contact with Nike products on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure many of you saw us beat Yale this past weekend. So in the 1970s, Nike was the first sports shoe and apparel company to use star athletes as marketing icons, which turned out to be an innovation in itself. So now that your product has started selling and you're starting to reap the benefits of increased efficiency and productivity, but now is not the time to be idle. You must, your competitors are starting to innovate on your innovation, so you must do the same. This wraps up the innovation master plan, and Adam will take you through a brief case study.
All right, so we're going to be looking at Crest white strips. If you're not familiar with the product, here's a quick commercial.
Plug in the sound if you like. It's fine.
This isn't. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how Procter & Gamble actually got to this elegant final product. For those of you who don't know, Procter & Gamble has been one of the most successful companies in the world for the past 150 years. But at the turn of the last century, in the year 2000, their sales started to plummet, and they weren't sure why. And after a lot of thought, they realized, we have a problem. Our innovation methods are not working well. That was the first step, defining their problem. They needed to find a solution, and their solution was they needed a new way to innovate. The first step to reaching that solution was reconstructing their product portfolio to focus on 4 main innovation categories. You can see these 4 categories right here. And Procter & Gamble has succeeded wildly in all of these categories in the past decade. We're going to be focusing on the first one, creating disruptive innovations. So once they reconstructed their innovation portfolio, they were able to streamline their thinking and get down to research. And research is so important because you have to know your consumer. You have to know what they want if you're going to be selling them something. So I sent the research team out into the field. And what they came back with was that over 60% of people wanted whiter teeth. Yet less than 5% of people actually took measures to get whiter teeth. So they noticed this huge discrepancy. But the important thing is not to just notice the discrepancy. You have to realize why there is a discrepancy. So they sent the research team back out into the field and came up with 2 explanations for why there's such a big discrepancy. 1, people believed getting their teeth cleaned at the dentist was too expensive. Reason number 2, people didn't think over-the-counter treatment was effective. So now Procter & Gamble had their problem. They knew what they had to overcome to enter into this market. They had to create something that was cheap and effective. And as Doris was talking about, the last step of research is creating all these prototypes, or brainstorming. So remember, you start out wide with these crazy ideas, and then start to narrow it down. And they narrowed it down to 2 methods, paste and strips. And once they narrowed it down to these 2 methods, they began to prototype and see what would be the best way to enter into the market. And after lots of prototyping and bringing in specialty people to design their prototypes, they decided that whitening strips would be the best way to go. They're cheap, efficient, and attractive. It solved all their problems. So now they have their golden product. What do they do with that? Well, they need to enter into the market, which comes into all the marketing strategies. Now the important thing about marketing strategies is to realize how closely tied it is to research. You need to know your customer if you're going to be marketing to them. So the brilliant thing that Crest did was they noticed that people just wanted to be attractive, which is why most of the marketing strategies were linked to fashion instead of oral care. So they had celebrity endorsements. This is Joan and Melissa Rivers. And they first marketed in Los Angeles and New York City, which were the fashion capitals of the US. And these marketing strategies were extremely successful. They were just selling off the shelves. And so our main philosophy about selling is that it can be summarized by a quote from Mark Zuckerberg. It says, "The only mistake a company can make is to not make mistakes." You always have to be on the move and trying to be innovative.
All right, thank you.
All right, team 6, come on down.